would you like to create more professional looking, higher converting pages every time you build any kind of page online? Well, here's a tip that will help you to do that. Use color palettes. All right, so what in the world is a color palette? Well, how about if I show you a demonstration of a cool little site that might help you to understand a little bit more about what they are and how to use them, okay? All right, so this is a site called happyhues.co. happyhues.co. And what this is a color palette finder, as well as giving you all the links you need to be able to actually implement that color palette. So here we're working with a specific palette. It's down here because it's marked off. Actually, that's not the one. Well, whatever it is. Okay. And then you scroll down, you can see how it is used here on this page. And then I can come up here and say, okay, I want to see this one. And so I change the palette to that look. Notice how nothing else changes. The language doesn't change. Nothing else changes. The only thing that changes is the background. But you feel differently in looking at this site than you do, say, for example, this one. Isn't it interesting how the color changes the way you perceive that site? Okay, so this is a cool little site, happyhues.com, because it enables you to come in and click on any of these down the side that you want and choose one that you really like. Okay, this one's happy and perky, but why is it happy and perky? Primarily because of that yellow, but this greenish, whatever color this is, I'm not quite sure what color to describe that is, but it enables you to be able to come in, and then all you have to do is click on one of them. So if I want to get that yellow color, all I have to do is click on it. It's now copied that code into my copy buffer, and then I can paste it onto my site and say, here, I want this site to be yellow. And you go to the thing for what color do you want the button to be? And you click it and it turns yellow. Okay, so this is cool. Now, let me just show you a couple other things that I think might help as you're looking at color palettes. So the first one is, notice how you can use certain colors, like the highlight color, in this case, that yellow, in just a few places, yet it can have huge impact when it does show up. Okay, that's really important. Now, this site does violate one of my rules, which is, hey, if I've got a buy button or something like that, I would choose a color that's not on the page. So I would not choose the highlight color to be that button color. I'd probably go with a really ugly red or an orange or something like that, because you want to uglify the button. We've talked about that in previous ones. If you want to learn more about that, just go into this Facebook group and click and search on the term uglify, and you'll learn more about why we do that. But secondly, notice this. Here I've got this whitish color of background. It's not pure white. Pure white is FFFFFF. This one's got an E at the end, so this is slightly off-white. And then I come down and notice how all of a sudden it changed the background. I've got text on top of that background, and then I have squares with rectangles within it that pick up back that background color again. This is a core principle that it's important to understand, which is when you are doing a web page, as we've said, people don't read web pages, they skim. And one of the best ways to help them in that skimming process is to use large words like this, headers, that make it so it's obvious what's going on. But another one is to change the background colors between different sections, like is happening here. So whenever you change the color of a background, you just said, hey, this section's about a different topic. Notice what just happened. Here I've got this little section where we're talking about color terminology. Now I drop into the psychology of color. The area's changed. And so that's another key principle that it's important to understand, which is when you're doing a web page, frequently change the backgrounds for different sections. Stop thinking about a web page in terms of here's the headline, here's copy, and then way down at the bottom, I'm going to have a buy button or something like that. Think of here's a web page that's got this section that talks about this subject, and then it's got this section that talks about one aspect of that, and then it's got this section that talks about another aspect about it. And you can build a 17-page long sales letter using those different colors and going back and forth. And if I was to do a 17-page one, I probably wouldn't do just 2 colors going back and forth. I'd probably have an image be in there that maybe is pushed back by putting an overlay, a transparent overlay over it that turns that image into a color, yet still enables you to be able to read over it. That is a bonus tip I wanted to give you that's really important, is when you break up the colors of the background and what's happening on them, you clearly designate this is another section that you should pay attention to. All right. So 3 things today. Number 1, Happy Hues, HUES.co is a really cool place to get some of these color palettes, all for free. Number 2 is break up content by using different colored backgrounds for different sections. And then the third one we mentioned just peripherally, which is do things like put in headers to show, like this one right here, this one that says color terminology, put in headers, big bold headers that describe, hey, you're now in another section, so that people can easily skim and get value out of it. All right, there you go. Just doing this. So first off, I like this site because it's got some good professional looking color palettes. I encourage you to go look at this. Secondly, I encourage you to use the breakup of your site that we talked about. And thirdly, use headers as you go along. So what's your experience in doing this? Do you usually use a color palette? Now, I'm sure there's one other question that's going to be asked here, which is, do I use a single palette for my entire website? And the answer is definitely maybe. Sometimes you want to tie your entire website together with one color combination. Other times, in fact, I personally believe in many cases, what you end up doing is, here's my website. For those of us who are watching this, who are like course creators and things like this, I usually come up with a color palette for each program that I'm selling. That color palette is for that program. So any pages about that program have this color palette. And then here's this other program over here. That one's got its own color palette. And that's how you tell you're in one versus another. And then the site itself has got a totally different color palette, or maybe not totally different, but a different color palette. So you can tell when you're going off of the main site into the basically subsites, they're all still in the same URL for the different individual products. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your reaction to this particular site. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.